going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and tonight we're going to be talking about how to unlock the Unstable Rift and acquire a free animated camo in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, drop a like. I want to thank all you guys for the crazy support on all the covers that I posted as of the last couple of hours ago. I was live for around 7 hours with the launch of Season 4 Reloaded. We covered the patch notes, classified battle pass sector, the brand new Altered Strains challenge event, as well as the Week 5 Sledgehammer melee weapon unlock. There was so much to get through and still so much more that I want to cover over the next 24 hours, but the team is also very hard at work over on detonated.com with plenty of brand new article coverage, keeping you guys up to date with all things Call of Duty. That's Black Ops 6 and of course Season 4 Reloaded. But Unstable Rifts just got added as of today with the launch of the mid-season, so here's how Unstable Rifts do work. They're not really like the Void objectives that we had back in Vanguard, which essentially gave you a round-based type of experience in a different type of mode. That's not really what these are. So these Unstable Rifts do consist of 5 phases that you can complete, and you could do them again in a separate match, but you can't do any more in the same match that you're in. So these kind of function like the previous Dark Ether Rifts from Seasons 1 through 3, where once you leave Urzikstan to go into a rift, you're then put in a different server, and then you exfil from there to conclude your experience. Now there's going to be a set of obelisks scattered around Big Map or Urzikstan, and as long as 3 of them get activated and completed, an Unstable Rift will then spawn in. Now these 3 obelisks could be completed by any squad in the match of Urzikstan, so it's not really a race to complete the obelisk more than it is a race to get to that Unstable Rift before another squad ends up getting there first. Now I'll talk more about how other Unstable Rifts do spawn in later in this video, but if you don't actually go through and find any obelisks to complete so that you can spawn an Unstable Rift, then Unstable Rifts will also spawn automatically towards like the last 5 minutes of your match of MWZ. So that's kind of a way that players can get a chance to play the Rift without putting in the work to actually complete the obelisk. Now like I said, once you go into a Rift, you do not go back to Urzikstan, but keep in mind you can assimilate when going into an Unstable Rift, which I really recommend everybody out there does to get this done in the most efficient way possible. So here's what you need. So obviously your loadout may look a little bit different from solo versus co-op, but I would say for most runs, especially when playing with a squad, an RGL is an absolute monster, especially when running the brand new aftermarket part that just came out about a week ago. And if you run those slug rounds with that RGL, this thing is going to be heaven. I'm not kidding. So if you run that with a Scorcher so you can traverse around Urzikstan to get those obelisks done or to set up a little bit, then that's going to be pretty helpful. But once you're in the actual Rift itself, I would say a Scorcher really isn't necessary, but instead a ranged meta weapon to help you kill bosses like the FJX Horus or the crossbow. The RGL isn't the worst against bosses, but it's helpful to have a really good secondary in your loadout just in the case your teammates don't. Now here's a big tip to save you an incredible amount of time. If you're on solo, spawn in with every single AAT, whether they're from your stash, acquisition, schematics. If you're with teammates though, maybe you have one player bring in 2, the other players bring in 1 each. Have each type of ammo mod on your squad at all times, right? You don't have to equip them to your weapon until you know you need them, but make sure that you have every type of AAT available to your squad because you may need any one of those 4 when going through the process of unlocking an Unstable Rift. Shatter Blast won't be needed. It's just Cryo Freeze, Dead Wire, Brain Rot, and even Napalm Burst. But within Urzikstan, there have been about 8 spawns for these obelisks that have been found thus far. There may be more, and if any others are found, I will update the article down below over on detonated.com. I'll even pin a comment as well, but these obelisks will be spawning next to story missions or previous Dark Ether Rift portals. So yes, there is some type of logic with where these obelisks are going to be on Urzikstan. They're close to places we've been before in previous seasons. Feel free to use your Scorcher or a Bloodburner to get to these as fast as you possibly can. It's kind of like the Red Worm where there are fixed locations for these machines, or in this case the obelisk, but it's just kind of RNG as to which fixed spawns you're going to end up seeing in your match of Urzikstan. So once you find one of these obelisks, whether it's in tier 1, 2, or 3, you got to take a look at which AAT icon is on the obelisk itself, then equip that AAT onto your weapon and get kills in the circle that spawns around the obelisk once you activate it. And it's really straightforward, right? You just got to get kills with your weapon. Doesn't matter if the AAT activates or if it's a case of brain rot. It doesn't matter if the brain rotted zombie gets the kills for you. You just got to get kills with your weapon while the AAT is equipped to the weapon that you're holding. Now, for some reason in my match, I got really weird luck where every obelisk I found in my game required us to use Napalm Burst, and I'm sure in your games out there, it's going to be a little bit different where one obelisk will ask you to use Cryo Freeze, one will ask you to use Dead Wire, so just pay attention to which AAT you need to use and equip that, since you may have brought that in to your inventory from the beginning of the match. Maybe your teammates have the other AATs, or you go around to gas stations, Ethernets, and strongholds to also go ahead and just farm these AATs out of some loot boxes. Now, once your team or any squad in the lobby successfully completes 3 obelisks, which means that they've gone ahead and gotten the kills with that designated AAT, once that happens, an Unstable Rift will spawn into your match, and keep in mind, every squad will see the pop-up on their TAC map that an Unstable Rift has spawned. This means that another squad has the opportunity to go to that Unstable Rift before you, so you just need to remember that only one player on your squad needs to activate the Unstable Rift to initiate your teleport. You don't have to have every squad mate next to the Unstable Rift for you to go in, so make sure one of your teammates has a Scorcher or a vehicle to get to that rift as fast as possible before somebody else steals it. If you manage to get to an Unstable Rift and other people are there, then try to assimilate with them, because the more players you have, the easier the Unstable Rift is going to be. Now, if for some reason you missed the Unstable Rift because another team ended up stealing it, then you should look at those locations that I put on screen again for other obelisks, since it'll let you go ahead and complete those again, or different ones around the map, so that a different Unstable Rift location can also spawn into Urzikstan, allowing your team an opportunity to go into one. Now, once you spawn into an Unstable Rift, you're going to be given every single perk. So yes, a Perkaholic. The weapon that you're holding will be maxed out, both weapons that is, they'll both be maxed out to tier 3 Pack-a-Punch with max legendary rarity. They're also going to give you a free self-revive and even a Mags of Holding ability, which is really helpful for these 5 phases. Now, we also tested it. If somebody were to go down and fully bleed out and then they get revived, they'll also get all of this content back, which is phenomenal. So when going into these rifts, you don't have to really stack anything up. You don't have to worry about buying perks, pack-a-punching, or upgrading your weapons before going into these, because the game gives you everything you need to complete these phases. So like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be 5 phases you have to go through in this Unstable Rift. Each phase lasts about, I want to say, 5 minutes, so they're pretty lengthy and could get a bit repetitive, especially when you see the strat that we used here in this game. As you assimilate with more players, the easier this experience is going to get. With this RGL strat, which may not always work, because they might end up nerfing this in the future, we were just spamming RGLs non-stop, and whenever an HVT came around, somebody took out the crossbows or the FJX Horus. The RGL wasn't bad against bosses either, but other weapons that are obviously meta killed those bosses even faster. The zombies are going to be tier 4 in terms of health, and I think as each phase goes on, you'll get a couple more spawns than usual. I think the zombies get a bit tankier, there's more armored ones, more special elite type enemies. Things get pretty crazy, but with the amount of enemies you're killing pretty quickly, you essentially have unlimited ammo, especially with the RGL, so you're just spamming everywhere here inside of this little portion of Al Bagra Fortress. And Healing Ore is obviously the field upgrade you want to bring into a rift like this, because if anybody goes down, it's going to be very hard to revive them, even with quick revive. Unless you throw a decoy or a monkey, then sure, but it's easier to just spam Healing Ore, because you're going to get it back relatively quickly, considering how many kills you're actually getting here inside of this small space. But towards the end of each phase, a special bounty will be marked that you have to kill, kind of like a mini boss of some sort to just conclude a phase. And then after you complete a phase, you'll have about 30 seconds to go up to the reward rift and get some interesting rewards. They aren't anything crazy, it's more like kill streaks and equipment, maybe something useful that you can use if somebody goes down. But since you already have everything and you're maxed out as a player, the rifts aren't going to give you very much. There's no new schematics that you can earn. It's just a couple of extra rifts that may give you a bit of a boost. But yes, kill streaks like Mortar Strike, Juggernaut, Cluster Mine, all of those do work while within an unstable rift. Now, I think the original idea I got when these rifts got announced was that maybe this would be the mode you go into, or the experience you go into, if you want to grind camos instead of exfil farming or going ahead and doing Outlast a bunch over on Urzikstan. But this is something that I wouldn't really do for camo grinding, considering the setup that it takes to get into these, and this could be pretty difficult, especially when you think about which weapons are actually viable when going up against tier 4 zombies. This could get pretty tough, but wouldn't be shocked if maybe we get other unstable rifts added in the future for like the season 2 and 3 Dark Ether spaces that we got, since Abraga was of course the Dark Ether space that we got all the way back during season 1. Now, as you get to phase number 5, obviously it's been a bit repetitive up until this point, just kind of spamming everywhere and surviving as long as you can. You don't really have to kill a set amount of zombies to beat the phases, it's kind of just time based, so just survive as long as you can essentially, right? That's what zombies has really always been about. But during phase 5 there'll be an actual boss of sorts that will spawn in. He doesn't have a health bar or anything, but he's a very similar boss to what we saw in the season 3 Dark Ether Rift, where it's like a disciple that floats around, and before you can do damage to him, you have to kill his minions that are also marked for you. So while dealing with dozens of other zombies and armored heavy types, you have to worry about the marked bounties as well as the actual boss of this phase. But once phase 5 is complete, you will get a really pretty pop-up that you've unlocked the Mark of the Survivor animated camo for having completed an unstable rift. You've likely accumulated a ton of XP up until this point, especially if you popped a double XP token, very helpful for the current challenge events going on. But as you can see here with the reward, after exfilling out of that unstable rift, this is easily one of the best looking rewards we've gotten, especially when you consider that this is free through MW3 zombies. They've been adding rewards here and there over the last few seasons, right? Where you beat a Dark Ether Rift, you'll get schematics, maybe even a blueprint, but to get a camo that looks as good as this may just be a top 3 inside of Modern Warfare 3 and probably a top 5 over the last couple of years, considering what you had to do to actually unlock this. It wasn't a challenge event, it wasn't a bundle or a special free drop for a limited time. This is an actual challenge within zombies, which I think is great for the zombies community overall and looks pretty damn cool, especially on some of the darker multiplayer maps. Now, apart from being able to use this camo on any weapon of your choice, you also got rewarded with an instant refresh on all of your schematics. So I'll give you an example here on screen. All of my schematics were pretty much used, and I couldn't actually go ahead and use any of these for another couple of days or until I exfilled enough with plenty of points to bring that timer down. I now have access to all of my schematics again. So I'd say the number one reason people are probably going to do these rifts after getting the camo unlocked is likely to just refresh all their schematics in the case they want to go do a Red Worm run or a difficult story mission or even a Dark Ether Rift from previous seasons. That's why people are probably going to replay these, because that's a big boost to your entire inventory if you've used everything in a short amount of time. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the unstable rift quest here within Modern Warfare 3 Zombies? What are your thoughts on the free animated camo plus everything else we discussed? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.